What would you do if the night before your wedding, you caught your bride kissing your sister? I stood outside that bedroom door, heart racing, and what I heard changed everything. I was about to say I do in front of 300 guests until I found out I was just a cover story for a secret love. And when I exposed the truth, it led to something far worse than heartbreak. It led to death. I couldn't sleep the night before my wedding. Not because I was nervous, not because I had doubts, but because something felt wrong. There was this strange stillness in the air, the kind of quiet that feels less like peace and more like something holding its breath before chaos. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself it was just pre-wedding jitters. But deep inside, I knew better. Christina had always made me feel safe. She wasn't just beautiful. She was soft in her tone, generous in her love, and intentional with her actions. She didn't just love me. She loved my family. She made my mother smile. She laughed at my father's old jokes. And most of all, she loved my sister Rachel like her own blood. Rachel and Christina were inseparable. They met in college, became roommates, and then practically sisters. I didn't think much of it when Rachel introduced us. It was actually her idea. I was single, quiet, still recovering from a bad breakup, and Rachel said, "You'd love Christina. She's perfect for you." And I did. Rachel encouraged us, supported our relationship from day one. She told me Christina had been through a lot and needed someone solid, someone rooted. I thought I was that person. I truly believed I was. Now, I wonder if Rachel had another reason for playing matchmaker. One I was too blind to see. That night I stayed at my parents' house, one final family tradition before the big day. Rachel was there too. Christina was staying in the guest room. I got up at midnight, thirsty. The hallway was dark and the house was silent. Then I heard its soft whispers coming from Christina's room. Rachel's voice. Then Christina's. Then something else. A moan. A kiss. And then my world tilted. People think betrayal happens in one sudden moment. A slap of truth. An explosion of lies. But sometimes, betrayal creeps in quietly, masked as love, wrapped in warmth, disguised as safety. I stood outside that room, heart pounding like a war drum. I heard Rachel whisper Christina's name like a prayer. I heard Christina laugh light, intimate, and private. Not the way a bride laughs with her future sister-in-law, but the way a woman laughs when she's with the one she loves. My legs wouldn't move. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that I'd misheard, misunderstood, that maybe Rachel was just comforting her. But then I saw them. The door wasn't fully closed. Rachel had her arms around Christina, and Christina, she kissed her on the mouth, slow, like no one was watching, except I was. I stood there, invisible, watching the two women I loved most love each other in a way I never could have imagined. I wanted to burst in, to shout, to demand an explanation, but something held me back. Instead, I backed away. I walked to my room in slow motion. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. My stomach twisted. My chest burned. But no tears came. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I played every memory back. Every time they looked at each other, a little too long. Every time Christina said, "I'm just going to sleep over at Rachel's." Every secret smile. Every late-night conversation. They said I wouldn't understand. God, how blind was I? I didn't sleep at all that night. Just laid there, wondering if the love I felt for Christina had ever been real, or if I was just a piece on a board they moved to protect their real love story. Morning came like a curse. Sunlight poured in through the curtains, and the house stirred awake. My mother's voice floated down the hallway. She was humming a hymn, joy in every note. My dad was already dressed in his clergy robe, pacing, reciting scripture like he always did before officiating a wedding. And somewhere in that same house were Christina and Rachel, laughing, smiling, pretending. I stood in front of the mirror, tying my tie with trembling hands. I looked like a groom, black suit, white shirt, polished shoes. But inside, I was a war zone. Part of me wanted to call the whole thing off. Another part of me wanted to confront them. But louder than both was the voice that said, "Don't ruin everything. Not today. Not in this family." We were a pastor's household. Reputation mattered more than truth. What would people think if the wedding was canceled? What would they say if they found out why? I thought about my parents, about the hundreds of guests who had already flown in, about the decorated church, the programs, the choir, the ring I bought with my last savings. I even thought about Rachel, how ashamed she'd be if her secret got out. So I told myself I'd wait. I'd go through the motions, say the vows, smile in the pictures, and maybe I could pretend it didn't happen. But that lie didn't last long, because as I stepped into the car, I caught a glimpse of Rachel through the window. She was adjusting Christina's veil, tucking her hair, whispering in her ear, and Christina was smiling at her. Not the way a bride smiles at her groom, but with love. Soft, deep, familiar. That was the moment I knew I couldn't go through with it. I kept my distance that morning. Christina texted me a few times. Just little things. Thinking of you. Can't wait to be your wife. You're going to make me cry walking down that aisle. It stung. She didn't know I knew. She had no idea that behind every "I love you," she whispered, I saw something else now. A lie with lip gloss. A betrayal in a bridal gown. Rachel kept acting normal too. You'd think guilt would have cracked through. But no, she was calm, cheerful, helping our mother, organizing flowers, making everyone laugh. Meanwhile, I was in the back room of the church with sweaty hands and a pulsing headache, staring at the ring box like it was a loaded gun. Then came the final straw. About an hour before the ceremony, I stepped outside to get some air. That's when I saw them, Christina and Rachel, huddled behind the chapel, under the shade of a tree. They didn't see me. Rachel cupped Christina's face in her hands, said something I couldn't hear, and kissed her on the forehead. Christina closed her eyes like it gave her strength. They looked in love. Not confused, not guilty, just in love. And in that moment, something in me snapped. Not because they loved each other, not because they were women, but because they used me, lied to me, played with me, let me fall in love so deeply with something that was never real. Let me plan a future while they built one of their own right behind my back. I didn't care about the guests anymore. I didn't care about the church, or the cake, or the dress. All I wanted was the truth, and for everyone to know it. The church was packed, every pew filled, smiling faces, phones out, soft organ music played in the background. The aisle was lined with white roses, Rachel's favorite. Everyone stood when Christina entered. She looked angelic, a vision in lace. My mother wiped away a tear. My father looked proud, clutching his Bible. Christina held her bouquet with grace and walked like this was the happiest day of her life. I stood at the altar, hands clenched behind my back, staring at her. When she reached me, I offered my hand. She took it, smiled. Her eyes searched mine, maybe wondering why I wasn't smiling back. I looked at Rachel sitting in the front row. She gave me the smallest nod, like everything's fine. But it wasn't. The ceremony began. My father stood between us, reading the same words he had spoken over dozens of couples. Marriage is a sacred covenant. I didn't hear most of it. I was busy drowning in the memory of what I saw. Then came the vows. Do you, Nathaniel James Carter, take Christina Lynn Mercer to be your lawfully wedded wife? Time froze. I looked at Christina. I thought about the night before, the kiss, the whispers, the lie we were about to make holy. I leaned into the mic. No, I said clearly. The room gasped. A ripple of confusion shot through the crowd. My father stuttered. I'm sorry, son? I said no. I turned to the guests. This wedding's not happening. Because the woman you see here, my bride, is in love with someone else. And not just anyone, but my sister. You could hear a pin drop. Then came the screams, the whispers, the chaos. Rachel stood up in horror. Christina froze. And I walked out. I didn't stay to see the fallout. I couldn't. As soon as the words left my mouth, I handed the mic back to my stunned father and walked straight down the aisle, past the crowd, past my mother's sobbing, past Christina's shaking hands, and Rachel's pale face. I stepped into the bright sunlight like someone waking from a coma. I had told the truth, exposed it, ripped it wide open for the world to see. I should have felt free, but I didn't. All I felt was rage and something colder emptiness. I didn't know that less than an hour later, I'd be getting a phone call that would wreck me worse than anything else that day. Rachel and Christina had left the church. No one saw them go. They had taken Rachel's car, trying to escape the shame, the whispers, the camera phones, the judgment of an entire congregation. They didn't get far. There was a sharp turn just outside town. Witnesses said they were speeding. Maybe Christina was crying. Maybe Rachel was trying to calm her. Either way, they missed the curve. The car flipped. By the time the paramedics arrived, both of them were gone, dead, on impact. The phone fell from my hand. I remember someone screaming. I think it was me. My parents collapsed in each other's arms. My mother wailed like her soul had been ripped out. My father fell silent for the first time in my life. He had no words, no scriptures, no prayers. I sat on the front steps of the church, hands in my hair, breathing through the weight of a grief I'd never known before. I didn't just lose my sister or my fiancée. I lost everything. Grief has a strange way of twisting time. 1 minute, you're standing in front of a crowd, burning with righteous anger. The next, you're staring at 2 caskets, wondering if silence would have saved them. People kept saying it wasn't my fault, that they made their own choices, that I didn't cause the crash. But no matter how many times someone said it, I couldn't believe it, because I had a choice too. I could have handled it differently. I didn't have to humiliate them. I didn't have to turn our wedding into a stage for public shame. I could have waited, spoken to them in private, protected them, even in my pain. But I didn't. I let my anger speak louder than my love. And now, they're gone. I played the moment over in my head 1,000 times. Christina's stunned face, Rachel's panicked eyes, the way the entire church turned toward them like spectators at a trial. They ran because of me. They died because I couldn't control myself. It's not fair. None of it is. But guilt doesn't care about fairness. At the funeral, I couldn't look anyone in the eye. Not my parents, not our church members, not even God. Because how do you pray when you might be the reason someone died? How do you breathe when you're the one who shattered the hearts of everyone you love? I remember kneeling at their graves and whispering, "I'm sorry." But I knew it wasn't enough. After the funeral, the house felt like a museum of ghosts. Rachel's bedroom was exactly the way she left it: posters, perfume, a half-read novel on her pillow. Christina's makeup bag still sat in the guest bathroom. Every hallway echoed with memories we couldn't bear to unpack. My mother barely spoke. She stopped singing hymns. My father buried himself in scripture, trying to make sense of what had happened. He preached about forgiveness and sovereignty. But at night, I heard him crying through the walls. And me? I moved into the basement. I couldn't sleep upstairs. Too many memories, too much silence. The air was thick with what-ifs. I kept playing alternate versions of the wedding in my head. The version where I smiled and said, "I do," even if I knew it was a lie. The version where I confronted them privately. The version where I said nothing at all. But no matter how I twisted it, the ending was the same. They were gone. Sometimes I heard my mom walking around late at night, talking softly, like Rachel might still be listening. She would whisper, "We could have loved you anyway, if you had just told us the truth." That line haunted me, because it was true. If Rachel and Christina had trusted me with their secret, I wouldn't have hated them. I would have been hurt, yes, but maybe we'd all still be alive. But I wasn't innocent either. I reacted like a bomb, and now the pieces were everywhere, sharp and permanent. A few weeks later, I got a letter. It had been wedged between the pages of a Bible Christina used to carry. My mom found it while cleaning and handed it to me without a word. The envelope was soft pink, my name written in her delicate cursive. I hesitated to open it. Part of me wasn't ready, but curiosity and guilt won. Inside was a single page, dated 2 nights before the wedding. "Nathaniel, if you're reading this, it means something went wrong. And I'm so sorry. There's no easy way to explain why I did what I did. I never meant to hurt you. I never planned to fall for Rachel. But somewhere along the way, she saw parts of me I didn't know how to show anyone else. I wish I could be brave. I wish I could tell you this in person. But fear is a strong thing. And love, real love, doesn't always look the way people expect it to. I do love you, Nathaniel. Just not in the way you deserve. Please know you were never a joke to me. You gave me peace in a life full of hiding. I wish I could repay that with honesty. I'm sorry. Christina, I held that letter for hours. Read it until the ink blurred through my tears. She wasn't cruel. She was just scared. Like Rachel, like me. And somehow, that made it hurt more. I stopped going to church. The building felt like a lie. The pulpit reminded me of my father's voice, strong and sure, even when he didn't have answers. The stained glass windows filtered light in a way that made my skin itch, like they were trying too hard to shine beauty into a place filled with pain. I stopped praying. What was the point? God didn't stop the accident. God didn't stop the betrayal. And I couldn't keep pretending that faith was enough to survive something like this. People noticed, of course. Some church members whispered that I was backsliding. Others said I was going through a job season. A few well-meaning folks told me, God has a plan. But if this was God's plan, I didn't want any part of it. One night, my father sat beside me at the kitchen table. He looked tired, older than I'd ever seen him. I know you're angry, he said gently. I'm done, I told him, with all of it. He nodded slowly. You have every right to be. Then he slid a worn Bible toward me. When you're ready, even if you don't believe anymore, just talk to him. He can take the anger too. I didn't respond. But I didn't throw it away either. That night, I opened the Bible. Not to read, just to hold it. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. Healing is ugly. It's not warm baths and inspirational quotes. It's waking up with tear-soaked pillows. It's guilt when you laugh again. It's the ache of remembering something sweet and realizing it's gone. For a while, I convinced myself I deserved to suffer. I didn't go out. I didn't talk to friends. I skipped Rachel's memorial fundraiser. I ignored Christina's parents when they tried to call. I thought if I stayed in pain long enough, it would balance the scale. But pain doesn't work that way. One morning, I found Rachel's old journal, hidden behind her bookshelf. I didn't mean to snoop. I was dusting her things for my mom, but there it was, a blue leather book with a broken spine and a pen still wedged inside. I hesitated, but I opened it. And what I found inside changed me. Most of the entries were simple, Bible verses, doodles, daydreams about traveling. But as I flipped deeper, the pages grew heavier. I hate that I can't tell Nate. I know he loves her. But if he knew the truth, he'd never forgive us. Is it wrong to be in love and also afraid? Sometimes I think God made a mistake giving me this heart. There was one entry that shattered me. If I die tomorrow, I hope Nate knows. I never meant to hurt him. He's my brother, my best friend. But hiding who I am was killing me too. I closed the journal, tears hot on my cheeks. She had been terrified, torn between loyalty and identity, between faith and freedom. And I, her own brother, had turned her truth into a punishment. I thought exposing them would bring justice. But now I understood. They didn't betray me to be cruel. They were just trying to survive. It took months before I could speak their names without my voice breaking. But slowly, I began to write them letters. Not to send, of course, just to say what I hadn't. To Rachel, I wrote, I wish I had protected you, not punished you. You were scared. I see that now. To Christina, I wrote, you didn't owe me love, but you did give me kindness. I'm sorry I threw it back at you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means choosing love over punishment. Some days, I still slip. But when I do, I go sit by their graves. I tell them about my week. I read a psalm. I cry, sometimes. And I remind myself, they were human. So was I. And that has to be enough. Some nights, I see them. In dreams, Rachel laughs again, her real laugh. The belly-deep one she used to reserve for dumb jokes and family game nights. Christina dances barefoot in a white dress. Not a wedding gown, but something soft and free. They look happy. No secrets, no fear, just light. I wake up crying, but I don't resent the dreams anymore. They remind me that love, even messy love, leaves a mark. And even when it breaks you, it teaches you. Rachel and Christina taught me that honesty matters, that anger is a fire, not a weapon, and that silence can be deadly, but also that forgiveness can grow from ruin. It's taken me years to write this story, Not because the words were hard, but because the truth was heavier than I expected. I lost my sister. I lost the woman I thought I'd marry. But somewhere in the rubble, I found parts of myself I never knew I needed. I learned to grieve, to listen, to hold space for pain without letting it swallow me. And maybe, most importantly, I learned that love doesn't have to look a certain way to be real. That some stories don't end with a happy wedding, but they can still end with healing. So here I am, still broken, still healing, but not angry anymore, just human. And maybe that's enough. They lied to protect their secret. I exposed them to protect my pride, and now I live with the silence they left behind. If I had just chosen grace instead of vengeance, maybe they'd still be here.
Thank you for listening to this true confession of love, betrayal, and irreversible loss. What would you have done? Let me know in the comments. Do you also believe some secrets should stay secret? If this story made you think twice about anger, silence, or the weight of secrets, you're not alone. At Lies and Regrets, we tell stories that leave a mark. So if you felt this one, hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real-life confessions. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, stay human,